now we're here, and I
Yeah.
got the man Jason here, and came across your content on TikTok, brother. And I don't really reach out to many people, but the way you said your message to me, it just resonated as authentic, and the way you delivered it was like very it it, it resonated with me. And I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. I gotta connect with him. I gotta meet with him and invite him on the podcast. So, man, I appreciate you for having a conversation.
Of course, man. Robbie, thank you for having me, dude.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So you're doing your TikTok thing now, and how's your journey with TikTok has been so far?
Dude, I created a TikTok about a year ago, or over a year ago,
Okay.
and I made a handful of posts. I mean, like 5 maybe. And, did obviously, because TikTok, 5
Yeah.
posts, if none of them are significantly viral, then it's not really much is gonna shake.
Yeah.
And I basically put it on the shelf for over a year.
Gotcha.
And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was probably I'm a, pretty decent follower of Gary V, and
Okay.
he's been on TikTok so hard. And so it might have been something that he mentioned. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna rekindle my page. I'm just gonna start posting some stuff. And at the beginning of April, so as we're recording this, it's July 8th. But at the beginning of April, I posted like 5 videos over 2 days
Mm.
and didn't think too much of it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see what's gonna happen. Well, one of those videos to date right now probably has like 145 um, views. And so, excuse me, 145,000 views.
Oh.
And so that it didn't happen immediately. It happened like over like a 5-day period, right? So I posted
Mm.
it, it got captured a little bit of attention, a little bit more attention, and then all of a sudden a weekend hit, and I think there was some controversy that was kind of happening within the in the comments,
Okay.
and then and so that rekindled my excitement for TikTok, and since then I've really just been putting out a bunch of things that I feel, things that I are important to me, and things that I think I might be able to help other people with.
To me, that's the best combination of content. The things that are important to you, because you're building through that. You consciously or unconsciously build up your personal brand.
Right.
That's what a personal brand is. A lot of times people don't realize that it's a combination of the things you stand for, the things you stand against, and the way you deliver that message. And then the way people perceive all of that is the way that they brand you in their minds. That's the personal brand. So that's what struck me about you. Speaking of the video that you got all these views on,
Yeah.
have you ever had a video in the history of the internet do that well as far as reaching that many people?
No. Mm.
Me either. Me either. It's it's what was your experience waking up when you woke up and you saw that video had that many views? What did you think?
Bro, so it was actually a Saturday. It was a Saturday morning when it started taking off, right?
Mm,
And you may have done this or you may not have, but for me, it was so exciting to go back from like inbox to profile, and like I'm bouncing back and forth. And every time I would bounce back and forth and refresh the page, there'd be like dozens of new
mhm.
views. And then I jumped in the shower. I looked at it, and then I jumped in the shower. My wife and I were preparing to go to a party, a kid party, and I jumped in the shower and I came back out, and there were like 5,000 more views in just the few minutes that I was in the shower. And so I got my wife's attention, and we were, just kind of excited about it, and replying and staying engaged too, because it was the type of post that, like I said, did create some controversy.
Yeah.
But I was also interested in the conversation to the point to
Mm.
where some of it required some clarification, some of it required, okay, great, I'm glad you shared your thoughts, and just kind of welcoming. And so that too, that might be something worth offering, is my way of interacting with anyone who follows what I do is, of course, I'm open-minded to
Mhm.
any new person's perspective, because I feel like our best opportunity for growth is to attempt to see things through a new lens, right? Our
Mhm.
best opportunity for growth and development is for me to reach over and say, man, Robbie, how do you feel about this? And not put you in a box or put you in a category based on anything that I know prior to that question. But
Yeah.
from asking that question and then seeing how you respond to that, then gives me an opportunity to say, man, well, I never looked at it like that, or I
Yeah.
never thought of it like that. And that's that. What that serves is an opportunity for me to expand how I see the world, how I see other people.
I love that. That's what TikTok does. It does that. Like it's one of the most interactive social media platforms out there,
Right.
where you're not just talking to the same people every day, but you can with the addition of being exposed to total strangers that you've never met before, people that are coming across your content for the first time. And that's
So
another
true.
thing that I love about it. Like, so just imagine if it wasn't for TikTok, I never would have saw your video.
That's
I
right.
never would have reached out to you, and we never would have had this conversation.
That's right.
If we were just stuck in, let's say, Facebook land, I
Right.
had to add you as a friend, and you're like, "Who is this guy that wants to be my friend?" We don't have any friends in common. Like, who is this guy? Right. So there's like, if I look at my Facebook list right now, there's 200 people on there at least that I have not accepted. First of all, I don't use the platform. And then second of all, it's like, who are you? What do you want? you know, but
What I know, why is that? I have that same thing, right? Like, I'm not a skeptical person,
yeah.
right? I'm not a skeptical person at all in
Yeah.
like 99% of the time. But for whatever reason, there, when someone just like has this rando friend request, you're like, hold up. What's what,
What?
what's your agenda? What's your angle right here, huh?
Yep. You're 100% right. Cause I think I don't know why. It's weird. It's just a social media app, right? But like, it's almost as if we don't it's like I kind of view Facebook as like my house. Like, I don't just let everybody come to my house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. And then also I don't use the platform too, but even when I did, I would just be like, who is this guy? What do you want? You know? Cuz on that platform, I think for me on TikTok, I was able to be my real self. Um, because on all the other social media platforms, you have a collection of people that met you at a different point in life. Like, they're just a collection of, maybe it's somebody you went to high school with, and then your boss is on there, and then your neighbor is on there, and
Right.
so you play you consciously or unconsciously play a different character in relationship to all of those people. And for me, it doesn't give me the stage that I need to be my true authentic self, like all of me. And TikTok, I'm like, this is a world of strangers. I can get on here and just really be who I am behind closed doors. And from that vantage point, it allows me to open up new relationships with people that already know me from that raw, authentic place. You know,
That's beautiful.
like
I
I
heard
like
it said I heard it said recently that how you meet someone is how you know them,
Oh, that's it. That's exactly
right?
it.
How you meet them is how you know them. And so you're exactly right. When you meet someone by coming across a video that resonates with you, then that's going to stick with them, right? The
Mhm.
idea of a first impression is a lasting impression, right? Those are true. Those things are that's real. Um, Now, I can challenge you a little bit, Robbie. I know we're in a safe place, and I know that you and I have
Yes.
vibed well.
Yes,
I
sir.
would, and I'm gonna put myself in the same category as saying that
Yeah.
I feel the same way about TikTok.
Yeah.
Um, but we both stand to develop
Mm.
personally, and we both
Yes.
stand to get stronger personally in a way that what would actually happen if we were to overcome the self-limiting beliefs to where
Mhm.
we would authentically deliver our message to even those same people that already know us from a prior experience?
Yeah.
You follow me
And
on that?
I
Right? So
do.
so you are able to authentically deliver the way you're feeling right now, whatever message you have to deliver uh, to people you don't know,
Yeah.
right? But for whatever reason, and I do the same thing, I'm in the
Yeah.
exact same boat. For whatever reason, we tailor it, we adjust it, we tweak it.
Yeah.
We honestly we rob some of the authenticity of the message when
Based
we
off of it.
know when we know the audience.
Yeah.
Right? Why, man? I'm sure you have some thoughts on that, man. Tell
I
me
do
what.
I
Yeah.
do have some thoughts on it. So I would even now today post the same content on that platform. It's just that I despise that platform. Like
Okay.
just as a company, I don't like what they did to a lot of people. Uh I don't like the way they treated a lot of people at a certain point at a certain point in recent history
Okay.
when a certain thing was going on. And so from that point, I said, you know what? The way the platforms is set up is not set up for me. It's not set up for me to feel like I want to even contribute to the growth of this platform.
Right.
So like that's why I felt like TikTok was like the best audience because it's and some of those same people will follow me over there. Um but I feel like I'm a worldly guy. I'm better when when I feel like there's no cap. With Facebook, I felt like, you know, you gotta go through the process with the friends and the da 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 da. So, I just felt like, TikTok was the best place for me because I have a history with Facebook as well. And so I'm like, I just abandoned that whole audience. I didn't post anything over there anyway.
Right.
And TikTok just gives me unrestricted, like, you don't know who sees you on TikTok, right? Like, except for the comments that you get, that you do read, or the likes that you do see. But people watch you that
Oh
know
yeah.
you, that you don't know is watching you on there. And that's also what I like about it too, because I'm not thinking about, like, for instance, if I know, and we, like you said, we all do this, but if I know there is someone that, like, politics, okay, politics just rip people apart. And if I
Yeah.
know, if I want to speak about that subject, but I know that there's this really cool customer that I have on there that I know is not in that atmosphere, I might tailor the way I say that message because I don't want to, like, I'm already in the back of my mind, like, let me not offend this person.
Right.
And so TikTok just makes it to where I don't have to think about it so that I can just be like, bleh, just blurt it out there without having to, like, uh think about it too much. And that's what I love. Like, just I'm at this stage in my life where if you see me, like, I had a guy that I didn't know was watching me on there sent me a screenshot of a video. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Awesome. He's like, yeah, this came across my For You page. And I didn't know where he stood on this particular subject,
Right.
but it was refreshing because I just I didn't care what he thought about it. And
Right.
that's what I love. Like, you just don't know who's watching, and it just gives you the ability to be free.
That's
And
it. Robbie unchained, right? Robbie unshackled, Robbie
yeah,
untethered, right? Untethered.
yeah, untether.
I
And I've
like that.
been posting that same content on LinkedIn, which is a lot, or where a lot of my customers are for my marketing company.
Okay.
And so that's
What's that
been
response been?
Very well, you don't get the same traction obviously with
Right.
that crowd, but I think it's been good. And I think a lot of people who just knew me from a business level really have decided they like me or either don't like me because of my opinions on certain things. But I think it's done more good for my relationships than anything because
Sure.
people I think people just want to know what who you are rather than what you do
Right.
now. Because everybody does something. Everybody wants to sell something, especially on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
So it's like, you know, it's refreshing for people to see you talk about something other than, hey, buy my product, buy my service
Right.
on that platform. So I think your TikTok content will do pretty good on LinkedIn. It'll humanize a person because
I agree with that. So one of the I know you had earlier mentioned something about being on a journey, and part of the journey that I feel like I've been on is working through maybe
mm,
past experiences that have shaped how I show up today,
mm,
right? And working through some of that.
yeah,
And so as I have worked through that, um, some of the ways that that has become even more meaningful to me is that as I've chosen to do what we're talking about right now about building a personal brand, for a very brief moment, I asked myself the question. I was like, man, is my story audience worthy? Right?
mm,
Was the question that I came up with,
okay,
or that came to me. And then immediately I was like, of course it's audience worthy, right? Of course it is. And then, especially after I spent more time with it, and then certain memories would creep up and certain things would creep up and then certain experiences. And it's like, man, that's definitely audience worthy. And so, as I have begun unpacking that,
mm,
what I realized is that, first of all, everyone's story is audience worthy,
yep,
right? Everyone.
yep,
Um, but for whatever reason, we don't always own it to the point to where we are comfortable with sharing it because we
yeah,
think we're going to be judged, we think we're going to be shunned, we think we're going to be cast out. But the truth is that it's not a deterrent
yeah,
to the people who aren't going to like you anyway. It's
exactly,
actually an attractive mechanism for the people who are going to vibe with you and the people who are going to be interested in you.
100%.
And so flipping that idea on its head reminded me, and again, believe me, as a part of this journey, I have not told my story as well as I will eventually tell it because that's
Yeah,
part of it, right? Get
yeah,
comfortable enough with your story to where you're willing to tell it and then get better at telling it.
yes, 100%. 100%. That was one of the first things that I thought about too. If you go on my TikTok page, like the first, you know how you can pin videos.
Right.
So the three videos that I have pinned is who I am, which is my story, my upbringing, the person that I decided to become, and then the second video is about what I do. So who I am, what I do, and then the third one is let's make some money, you know. And so those three things were very important for me to have at I'm glad they came out with that feature because
Right.
if you just post like if you share your story, but it gets over time as you stack more videos up, it gets put way down at the bottom. Nobody can find your story anymore.
Right.
So and then you have to keep telling it over and over and over again. So I love that, I love that thought. Be comfortable telling your story and then, you know, what you said, and
But
then
get better at it.
get
Get
better at
better at
telling it.
telling it, right?
Yeah.
Get better at telling it. And two, as you mentioned that, I did notice that about your page because the normal psychology
Yeah.
is that this is the normal pattern that I've noticed. I'm gonna pin my most viewed videos so that way I can validate myself as being significant on this platform, right? That's the normal
Exactly.
pattern.
Yep.
And before you even just said that, I noticed that about your page is
Yeah.
that those are actually some of your videos that are not least viewed, but just
Yeah.
not as popular as
They're
some of the
not.
ones that have gotten a lot of attention.
Exactly. 'Cause I'm already validated inside of myself, right? So, like, I did I don't know if I ever did that in the beginning, but no, I don't think I did because a viral moment is not who you are, but it is who the world get introduced to you as, in that moment. Whatever your viral moment was, is like, that's who the world now knows you as, but, like, I wanted people to know that I'm much more than this video that went viral. Here's why I think the way I think. Here's where I come from. Here's who I decided to be after I went through my turmoil, my heartbreak, my struggles. And this is why I'm talking about this subject so much, because it helped me out. It helped me become who I am today.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's a very valid platform to do that on. What do you see for your TikTok future? What do you s- what do you see for your the future of even your brand?
Um, it really is a broad question. And two, so yeah, the way I would probably answer that is, I mean, obviously the future to me is bright. I'm very optimistic about the number of people that I feel like TikTok will allow me to reach. Um, some of what you've already mentioned is I feel like you know, I'm sincere in what I'm doing in the way that I'm not shameful about like asking people to follow me. I'm not shameful about asking people to engage with my content. I'm not shameful about asking people to participate in what I'm doing because I truly feel like everyone would benefit from spending time in silence and from choosing to adopt better habits, right? And
Mm,
so if I want to sum up what my content is about, my name is Silent Streaker, right? So I run every single day, okay? And I've been doing so I'm on a running streak, and so I've been running every single day since 2016. Um, and this morning before I came into the office, I ran 9 miles. Um,
that's
and
powerful.
and so but it was more of just a random thing. In fact, what prompted the longer run today, normally most of those miles are just one at a time. Okay.
Mm,
I know it sounds crazy, but
I love that.
most runners would balk at the idea, wait, you're only running 1 mile a day? It's like, yeah. And most runners would probably balk at, wait, you've been running for over 5 years and you're still running at that pace? And it's like, yeah, I am, because it's a very therapeutic event. The other component of the streaker is I do it in silence. So I don't listen to any music. I don't listen to any podcast. It's very
Mm,
much a self-reflective experience
mm,
where as I'm running, and I do it from home, right? So as I'm running away from home, I have this imagery playing in my head that I'm purging the negative, toxic, malicious, evil, if we want to be real descriptive on what some of those thoughts are, right? The
yeah,
hateful,
yeah,
the hateful thoughts that creep up.
yeah.
My imagery of what I'm doing as I'm running away from home is I'm purging those things, right? I want those
Mm,
things to be lifted from me, to be pruned away, to be plucked away, to be cold. And then when I turn around and head back home, I open myself up and make myself available to be filled up, to be inspired, to be encouraged, to be built up in a way that says, okay, if I had full and complete control over my thoughts, if I had full and complete control over my emotions, if I had full and complete control over my actions, what would I display to the world? Right? What would I
mm,
display? What would I display today? And
mm.
and so that for me happens every day, right? And so
Yeah,
it's an everyday renewal, if you will.
I love that, and I love the fact that you do it in silence. The natural thing is to put on headphones, to run and listen to music or to listen to a podcast, but the fact that you do it in silence with the intention of purging those emotional blockages to return home as a new person is phenomenal. Like, that's absolutely amazing.
Thank you,
Just
man.
just that's phenomenal. And I love that you say, most days is only a mile.
That's it.
It's you know, if I go to the gym right now and I binge on the gym for 3 hours and I go tomorrow for 3 hours and I just work, 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 work. And then next week I only go for, you know, 20 minutes and then I don't go again for another 4 months. Well, I just went through what they call a burnout
Yep.
and I don't get the results. But if you do 1 mile every single day
That's right.
for 10 years, then you're in great shape. And then you also created a sustainable habit that you don't feel overwhelmed to engage in every single day.
That's exactly right. I want that hurdle. And so I'll share this concept with you. So I call it, I have a term for it. I call it my anchor habit. Okay.
The anchor habit. I love
An-
that.
Anchor habit. And the idea is that you can essentially stack any habit on top of your anchor habit. Right.
Mm.
And so when I was first inspired to do it, I was on a longer run, right?
Okay.
I was probably 5 or 6 miles in, longer run, long for me at the time, for sure. I hadn't at the time of the inspiration, I hadn't run a marathon yet. At the time of the inspiration, I hadn't run a half marathon yet. I want to say my longest run at the time of that I was inspired to do it was probably 6 or 7 miles, right?
Wow.
And this was the longer run. It was towards the end of the run. And these thoughts just came to my head of like, man, this feels so good, right? Like thinking of this runner's high. And I'm like, man, what if I did this every day?
Mm.
Man, what if everyone did this every day?
Mm.
And so the idea came to my mind, a 5K a day, right? 5K. What if everybody did a 5K a day? And I was like, wait, that's way too ambitious. So I quickly whittled it down to
Yeah.
1K a day. And for the longest time, Robbie, for the longest time, my social media presence was me filming a video for less than 1 minute post run on Facebook and or Instagram every single day. All I would do
Wow.
is when I finished running, I would just post. I would just say, hey, 1K today, Jason Navarre, competing with the couch was another little hashtag I created.
Competing with the couch. You need to coin that. That's phenomenal.
Competing with the couch. And
Whoa.
so I would hashtag that and I would announce that in my video. But again, Robbie, if I had 5 years stacked up of going live on TikTok every day, or
Yeah.
if I had 5 years stacked up of posting a video on TikTok every day of that way,
Yeah.
how different would the penetration be? How different would the presence be, right?
Yeah.
To go
You're
back to and speak to what you mentioned earlier about the power of the TikTok platform, which again is so great. Um, and so again, my content journey has been kind of this meandering path of, let's try Facebook, let's try Instagram, let's do this, let's do that. And so but what I can appreciate about it though, and I think you'll appreciate this too, is I never wavered from the underlying commitment of doing the act, right?
Yeah.
Even if I
Yeah.
didn't post well about it, even if I didn't share the story well, even if I didn't deliver it well, I still maintain the integrity of the act itself. Right.
Absolutely. 100%. The act itself is you walking more than you're talking.
That's right.
I
That's
love that
exactly.
because it's easy to talk cheap. It's cheap to talk, but it's expensive to walk. And I think that's what. And it's a lot of times when I talk to people about TikTok, um, they're like, they just look at me, man, and like, why would I do that? you know? And I'm like, well, don't you want to eventually expand your business, or don't you want to eventually get your story out there? Well, this is the platform that's set up for you to like reach a significant amount of people.
Right.
And then some of those people, if they don't have any luck with it, they stop. And I'm like, don't get caught up on the numbers. Get caught up on the quality of relationships you can develop on the platform, not how many followers you get. That's a novelty thing. I've learned is that it's just novelty. It's cool for other people to look at, but in the reality of it, who are the people that I'm really connecting with? I need to meet 100 more Jasons and have really good relationships with 100 more people like you. So that's what I always tell people, like, just commit to, like you said, the repetition of it.
That's it.
Put your authentic self out there from wherever you are, and you're gonna attract the right people.
So I'm still actually in the process of trying to better describe or better tell the story of the anchor habit, right? Because
Mm,
to me, in my mind, it's an ironclad philosophy, right? Like
okay.
it's something that I use very effectively. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story about how I've used the anchor habit. Um, so I am a financial advisor by profession, right? So I'm not a full-time TikTok creator yet. And so when as I earn my living, I'm a financial advisor, right?
Yes.
And so, as financial advisors do, anyone who's familiar with our world, it's a very, very difficult business. Okay. So it takes a big support system and people lifting you up and encouraging you and being around, because the attrition rate in our business is incredible, right?
Mm,
It's literally like there's like a 10% survival rate in the business.
mm,
Those people who start in the game stay in the game and wind up retiring in it. Anyway, so we have a group that gets together once a month. Okay. And this was 3 or 4 years ago, um, when this happened. And in this group, there was a speaker that came in from out of town. And he was it was a more senior gentleman. He was 20 years in the game. And he was going around the table. This was at dinner one night. And he said, all right, I'm going to, conversation was with me. Long story short, he wound up calling me out and asking me to make a certain prospecting commitment. Okay. A certain
mm,
number of dials, certain number of attempts, whatever. And I committed to him. Okay.
mm,
We left the restaurant. And in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there thinking, I know I committed to him. I have a significant amount of respect for this individual. I don't know him very well, but I hold him up as someone who's, who would be respected. And I wanted to keep the commitment, but in the back of my mind, I'm sitting there saying, there's actually a chance that I'm not going to keep the commitment.
mm.
And I didn't quite understand it, and I didn't really know what it was. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't kept all the commitments that I have in the past, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. I'll share the thought about that. But the significant thing was this, Robbie. At that time, I had already had over 2 years of stacked anchor habits. I had already had over 2 years of 1K today, right? And a guy in my group, my mastermind group, knew me well. And he called me out and he goes, Jay, I know what will force you, and there's no way you won't keep the prospecting commitment.
Mm,
Is that if you tie the prospecting commitment to your anchor habit, to 1K today, and if you don't do the prospecting commitment on a Thursday, then you have to break your streak on Friday. You can't run on Friday. You have to break your streak if you don't do the prospecting
mm,
commitment.
mm.
Robbie, when I tell you, chills came over my body.
That's
I,
awesome.
I was like, okay. In that moment, when he made that connection, when he joined those two things, and someone else did it for me, when he joined those two things, I was like, okay, boom, prospecting commitment in the bag, done. Because
Wow.
when I live with the awareness of knowing that if I don't do the commitment, then I have to abandon the other one, it's going to happen.
Yeah. I love that. So you stacked it on top of your anchor
Stacked it
habit.
on top. And so part of my journey, or part of my mission, if you want to call it that, with Silent Streaker, is I would like to go on a crusade, I'm on a crusade to tell the story of every person should have an anchor habit,
Mm.
right? Every single person should have an anchor habit so that they can stack anything else
Other
they want
things
to do onto the
on
anchor
top of
habit.
that. So I would say never heard of anchor habit. This is a phenomenal concept, and now that you have illustrated what the anchor habit is, I think my anchor habit is meditation.
There you go.
So if I want to commit to something higher, then I can stack it on top of my anchor habit and say, okay, well, if I don't do this, then I don't get to meditate.
That's exactly right.
And I really want to meditate.
And think about the power of what has been built up in that
Y-
meditation practice. Think about the
Yeah,
power. And this is the way that I think about it too, is the significance of those stacked victories, right?
yeah,
After 30 days, after
yes,
90 days, after
yes.
180 days, after 365 days of stacked victories, the
Hmm.
power that's behind that habit is so significant. You can accomplish anything if you just stack it on top of it.
You're 100% right. 100% right. Because you've built up a solid foundation.
That's right.
I love that idea, man.
And Robbie, I think that's something that applies very much too in the content space, right? So I'll share another thought. TikTok is not going to be the last platform, right?
No, it's not.
It's just it's currently the most popular one. It's currently the one that's garnering the most attention. It's currently the one that's giving us the best opportunity for reach.
That's right.
Facebook came before it, Instagram came before it, Snap's still out there. They got all the other ones, Pinterest, Twitter, all of them, LinkedIn. What's required for you and for me to actually show up and deliver our most authentic self on any platform? A certain amount of confidence,
Mhm.
a certain amount of self-esteem,
Yep.
and a lack of apprehension and a lack of insecurity, right?
Yep.
So,
100%.
with that being said, what I've experienced on my journey of developing my anchor habit, as I'm doing it in silence, the benefits that I've experienced are twofold. The reasons why people don't show up as confidently as they can today, or excuse me, not as they can, but as their skill set would allow them to, and I'll explain that in a second, is because the first one is because we haven't worked through those limiting beliefs, right? We haven't worked
Mhm.
through some of those pre-existing stresses and pre-existing emotional triggers.
Right.
We haven't worked through those things, and we don't realize how that affects how we show up today, right?
100%.
We don't
One
realize how it affects us.
100%.
That's one component of it. So your anchor habit, because you're spending time in silence, because it's in silence, your anchor habit is done in silence. It allows those things to present themselves, and then you can objectively work through them perched from a more mature perspective, right?
Ooh, that's powerful.
So from that more mature perspective, you are processing those previously emotional experiences. And as you resolve those things, that
Mm,
then you show up more confidently. Okay.
mm,
That's one component of why people might be more insecure and not as confident as they could be. The other component of it is oftentimes we aren't quite as aware as it would be healthy if we were more aware of the dialogue that's occurring in our head and the promises that we don't keep to ourselves.
100%.
So follow me on this, Robbie. How
100%.
often, how often do you say, you know what, I want to do X, Y, or Z, or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but yet you fall short on that commitment to yourself,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? So part of the philosophy or part of what I've experienced in developing my anchor habit is that as you go further down the path of developing your anchor habit and you stack victories, not only are you stacking those victories, but you're stacking micro promises to yourself. And so as you
Mm,
build up and make those deposits of showing up as a person, you don't show up as someone who's just more skilled. You show up as a person that keeps promises to yourself. right?
Absolutely.
And so the
Absolutely.
confidence that it takes for us to deliver our authentic self on TikTok, on Instagram, or whatever the platform is, would be aided and assisted and helped by developing an anchor habit.
That's very true. Very freaking true. The dialogue, the internal dialogue. And I love that you put so much emphasis on silence because it is it is a underestimated and unused quality of life that can easily be overlooked
Yeah.
because we're constantly trying to put more and more noise inside of ourselves, unconsciously running away from the voice that we know we need to deal with. And
So accurate.
I love that you have put so much emphasis on silence.
Because for a lot of folks, Robbie, silence at first is very noisy,
Mhm.
right? Silence is not peaceful at first
No, it's not.
because as you spend time in silence, the things that are going to present themselves are often painful.
Mhm.
And to speak to kind of another thought on the idea is that
Very powerful.
we are not the experiences that happen outside of us, right?
No,
We are not that. In fact, we aren't our thoughts either, right? We are your identity is not within is not your thoughts. Your thoughts
that's
are is
right.
not your identity. And we are also not our emotions,
That's
right?
right.
But all of those things shape how we show up, right? And
Mhm.
so if I'm in a certain emotional state, I'm going to show up differently than I would if I was in a more depressed or a more, more somber emotional state.
Exactly.
Or if I've been thinking in a certain thought pattern and then I show up, I'm going to show up differently than if I was allowing
100
myself to harbor other thoughts.
100%. What do you I have a thought, man, that I would love to go into.
Sure.
So I think about this often and how I believe that so many people are misdiagnosed because of that. You know, uh depression is one of those words that you hear it every day now. Especially online with a lot of younger people. And I did this controversial video about and I can see how it would rub people the wrong way. But in the video I said, you're not depressed, you're just afraid, and you've been running from the voice inside of yourself for a long time. And it makes you feel as if you're depressed, but you're really you've suppressed this thing you know you need to deal with. And I think sometimes I think the label makes people feel like they have to live with it forever. Like, um, a friend of mine who overcame alcoholism talked about this. He said, in AA, you wear the badge of being an alcoholic for the rest of your life, even after
Mm.
you've done it. Even after you've stopped indulging in it for a significant amount of time. I met a guy. Um, I won't say, but I met a person um, one day who did introduce themselves as an alcoholic, and I was like, "Well, How long has it been?" "Oh, it's been 20 years." I'm like, "Well, you're not an alcoholic anymore." And so I have a problem, not a problem, but for me, if I'm able to be silent and face the thoughts that I have and face the emotion, if I stare at that for a significant amount of time, I have a breakthrough. And when I have a breakthrough, I no longer have to label that thing anymore because I've already saw my way through it. I've already sat my way through it and heard my way through it. Excuse me. And I don't have to sit there and just constantly put this label on myself. And I think a lot of times I talk about this concept of the institution of obligation. Sometimes I think we value the past more than we value the present. And I think it's because The past is the one thing we can't go back and change. And because we don't have access to it anymore, we try to hold on to it through the institution of obligation sometime. Like, okay, well, if I forgive my dad, like this is what was my mindset a long time. My dad was very violently abusive. So I felt like if I forgave him, even after he died, I let him off the hook for the bad stuff that he did. And he died when I was 16. It took me to 27 years old to sit and face that emotion. And immediately when I released and forgave my dad
Mm,
simultaneously, I realized that I let myself off the hook
correct.
because I was the one holding on to that anchor for all these years.
It was
To
never
that
your responsibility to hold his feet to the fire. Who
no,
who came down or who showed up and said, "Robbie, you are the one who's supposed to hold your dad accountable for his actions." No
exactly.
one.
No one. I did it to myself.
That's right.
And we do that to ourselves sometimes. And I think silence, people run away from silence. What made you run towards silence and then run with silence?
There you go.
What caused you to say, you know what, I gotta run towards and with this thing?
Well, again, it probably started with, um, man, Robbie, I would say, so I don't have what I would call a wonderful memory, a very accurate memory in a lot of ways.
Mm,
And I'm actually grateful for that, right? I'm
mm,
grateful for it in a lot of ways. Um, but the things that I do remember, um, and this is natural. I mean, I don't think I'm unique in this, but most of the things that I do remember are some of the most painful things.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
not the most joyous things,
mhm,
right? And so, from an upbringing standpoint, some of the first memories that I have aren't the greatest, right?
yeah,
And I wouldn't be able to use the same phrase that you used of saying your dad was very violent, but there was some, you know, what more than what you would call a spanking, right? There's some of
yeah,
that
yeah.
more than that. My dad has passed too, so he passed in 2020. Um,
My dad passed in 2020.
okay.
Wow.
Um, wait, I thought he passed when you were 16.
Oh, I'm thinking of he passed in 2000, sorry.
Okay. All
I
right.
got
Yeah.
you. It was the end of the world both times, right? It was
Yeah, yeah,
Corona and
that's
then it
right.
was
The dot-com
Y2K.
break, that's right.
Yeah,
Um,
2000, 2000. What am I talking about?
yeah. Um, but my upbringing was also, it
Sorry to hear that, by the way.
thank you.
It's okay.
Um, was wrought with substance abuse, okay?
Gotcha.
Not for myself personally, but for both of my parents, right?
Gotcha.
Um, and imagine this, right? To kind of make light of it, um, imagine, right? My mom's a waitress, or she works in the food, the restaurant industry. So she's always working evenings. My
Okay.
dad was working um, at a university, and so he would work all during the day and then come home in the evenings. And my mom would work most evenings, and she worked a lot of evening weekends.
Mm.
And my dad was, I don't know if you would call it an aspiring musician. We would just call him like a wannabe Led Zeppelin, right? Like
Gotcha.
he played keyboards. And so I have a younger brother who is 23 months younger than I am. And so we were pretty, close in age, and fought as brothers do growing up. But we were often together. And the environment that we were together in was basically like thinking about being a roadie of a rock band, right?
Wow.
So Friday, Saturday, and other days of the week, sometimes there'd be like full on like jam sessions, full on concerts, and all these friends that they called them Wookiees. The Wookiees were basically They were basically, drug using, drinking,
Yeah.
um, you know, degenerates might be a way to refer to it. And that was the environment that I was exposed to
Mm,
just about every weekend, right? And so
gotcha.
seeing, and you can imagine, I'm not going to give you all the imagery, but just imagine what those relationships might look like. My dad was the only one of the entire crew that was married, and the
Mm,
only one of the entire crew that had kids that
mm.
were around and involved. All the other Wookiees were just, you know,
Free,
free for
free.
free
Yeah.
for all. They were all
Yeah.
just free for all. Like what
Yeah.
you think of, I don't know if you saw the Netflix documentary on Motley Crue.
I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, dude, you got to go check that out.
Whoa. I gotta write that down.
You
Watch this.
please do. Please do. It is excellent. Um, but yeah, so all of what you think of when it comes to rock bands and all that, that's the environment that I grew up in, and they weren't always pleasant, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine the scenario of a girlfriend of one of the band members showing up, wasn't invited, but shows up, finds another person there for that band member. Next thing you know, knockdown, drag out fight. It's like Jerry Springer in
Mm,
there.
mm,
And those were some of my earliest memories as a like
mm.
little small single digit child. Uh,
Wow.
those things stand out to me most.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
you
so
were,
so to answer your question, to a long explanation to answer your question of the silence was something that I sought because this was never peaceful,
mm,
right? All the things that cropped up were painful. And so I found myself consistently running from that pain anytime that I was in silence, and knew that there had to be some kind of way to not run from, but work through. And
mm.
I found that through physical activity in silence and just committing to silence, just, laying the hammer down and just doubling down on the silence and, and working through it.
That's powerful. That's a very powerful way of looking at it and saying, basically not allowing your past to dictate who you are becoming
That's exactly right.
and
Something you
not,
mentioned a second ago, Robbie, and not to cut you off, but something you mentioned a second ago about there being an appreciation for history because it's the one thing we can't change. You're right.
yeah.
We can't wind back the tape and change the experiences of the past, but we can experience those things differently by
Hmm.
revisiting them
In the
perched from
future.
our new perspective.
Yes,
So,
sir.
from this new objective perspective, removed from giving that experience the opportunity to impact us or giving that experience the
100%.
right get we don't we're no longer allowing that experience to dictate how we show up today, but we can go back into the pages of the past and see that experience differently and process it differently and allow it to dissolve the grip that it had on us, right? Because it
100%.
it had a grip on us at one point.
100%. You're 100% right about that. It did have a grip on us at one point, and we don't have to allow it to have a grip on our future.
That's right.
I've looked at it and said, with my two boys, I have a really great relationship with them, and I've actually used my upbringing as a roadmap of what not to do.
I can relate to that too, bro.
Like, let me be the opposite of that. Let me be one thing I promised myself as a kid is I said, when I'm promising myself now that I'll never forget how it feels to be a kid. And I can have a better connection with my kids now because of that. Because when they come to me with things, I can still tap into that kid inside of me
That's
and
so
see
great,
how
dude.
they're seeing it and say, you know what? The adult person in me would say no, but man, I totally remember being in this situation. So I'm going to allow you to do this. and I'm going to allow you to understand that you have my trust, and I want to make sure that you can come to me about anything. Or I'll say, you know what? The dad in me wants to say yes, but the kid in me that's been here before is going to say no.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yep.
But we'll get, so I love that, man. So with you being in the financial planning industry,
Yep.
you do one would assume that you do a lot of projecting for the future, preparing for a future that is not here yet. How do you balance that with being present in the moment?
Great question. Um, I so it's inherent in the industry that the goal, if you will, of what we're attempting to help the client to accomplish is to be better prepared for a day when they no longer are earning an income and they might live off of the balance sheet and they might live off of, right, the assets that they've built up. And so it's also inherent in how people have been conditioned in society that they need to prepare for that day, early on. And there's a bunch of, well established ways to do that. However, I remind my clients every single time we have a planning conversation. I said, if any of our recommendations or anything that we suggest that you do to accomplish your retirement goals cause you to begrudgingly or frustratingly or just be miserable today,
Yeah.
then we're going to abandon those things, right?
Yeah.
Because the last thing that I want is for Jane and John to be at the restaurant and the opportunity to get, the top shelf margarita instead of the well margarita, or the opportunity to get dessert or not get dessert, get coffee and dessert, and they choose not to indulge in those things because I told them that they have to be better planned for retirement. The last thing that
Mm.
I want is for them to enjoy their current experience less as a result of the planning that we put in place.
Man, that's powerfully stated. That's powerfully stated. I love that.
And so what we often do is we put frameworks, Robbie, and we talk about stewardship as opposed to, right, as opposed to really having a goal that's set out there. We say, are we being a good steward? And again, this is a bit of a scriptural reference, but are we being a good steward of our time, talent, and treasures, right?
Mm.
And so you can find a lot out about a person if you look at their
Better write that
calendar,
down.
right?
Yes, 100%.
You could also
Time,
find
talent, and time, talent, and treasures?
correct. And you can also find out a lot about a person by doing what? By looking at their checkbook.
Yes, sir.
What's important to them? Where they're sending their money, whether
And
they're
what is
proactively doing it or whether they're just by default, by habit doing it, where their dollars are going. Scripture
Yeah.
will tell you that's where your heart is also, right? And
Mm.
so the idea is that take inventory.
Yeah.
Right? So we often start in a place where we say, hey, bud, this is not a judgment call. This is not me throwing stones. I'm not in any way saying that you are or you are not doing it right or wrong. That's not what this
Mm.
is about. However, we owe it to you that if we're going to play our role correctly, we're going to have to shine a light on what's currently occurring, right? So we
That's
have to,
powerful.
in a sense, we have to audit, right? We have to audit what's currently happening. And so
That's
as we
powerful.
shine that light, all we're doing is just looking at, you take the last month, just look at what's happened. And then you say this, does how you're currently behaving align with the direction that you want to continue to go?
That's powerful. Powerful.
And so
It's
some
either a
very
yes or a
easy,
no.
so it's a yes or a no. And it's not for me to decide, right? It's not
Yeah.
for me, it's them. But there is a framework that we use often, and it's this. We have three categories, Robbie. Is the necessary expenses, right? So if we do just a real quick cash flow analysis, take your income 100%.
Yep.
50% of your income is for your necessary expenses, right? Necessary. Keep the lights on, keep your bills paid. Groceries, not out to eat, right?
Yeah.
Um, the necessary things. Pay your mortgage.
Yeah.
Don't accelerate your pay down. Okay, so that should be about 50% of your income.
Yeah.
Okay, roughly. Now, this is different for every person, but this would be an ideal goal for the majority of people. 50% would be that. Then the next category, and it's only three categories. I don't know why, but humans just like threes. Okay.
Mm.
The next category is dollars that are intended to build your wealth. Okay.
Okay. Investing.
30%, 30%
Savings
goes
and
into this.
investing.
What's that?
Savings and investing.
Dollars that are, hold on, dollars that are intended to build your wealth. Okay. That's
So
different
investing.
because build your net worth, right? So your
Okay,
net
gotcha.
worth can grow whether you're paying down debt or whether you're investing in assets. So in that 30%, 10, 10, and 10, 10 short term, 10 midterm, and 10 long term.
Mm.
The short term is very flexible, okay? Because the short term can be used to establish an emergency fund. But then that short term, once that emergency fund's built, once that short term bucket is full, 3 to 6 months of living expenses, then you can redeploy those dollars either into midterm savings, long term savings, or if the person has a certain proclivity or a certain inclination to pay down their debt, use that 10% to pay down your mortgage, or use that 10% to pay down
Mm.
your vehicle loan, or use that 10% to pay down any other debt that you might have. But that 10% is reserved to establish your emergency fund and then pay down the any or accelerate any debts.
Love it.
Midterm is 5 to 10 year money, and then long term is 10+ year money. And
I love it.
each one of those buckets serve a different purpose. They get invested in different things, but they're all intended to build your wealth, or affect your balance sheet. And now notice that's only 80%, right?
Yep.
So this is what we love talking about. I don't know if you've seen the other guys, uh, but we talk about walking around money. Gator got to have his walking around money, and
Gator,
so
Gator gotta have some walking shoes.
and so and so that 20%, that last 20%, we either call it, depending on the person, we call it walking around money, or we call it blow it money. And we
Yeah.
say this: we say you gotta find a way to blow 20% of your
Yep.
money
That's it.
this month.
Yes.
Right? You got to find a way. You
Yep.
got to get rid of it, because
Yep.
that money is intended to be spent. And so what happens is this: you go out, take your wife on a date, and you don't have that little dude sitting on your shoulder that says,
Oh my
"Hey,
God.
hey, Robbie, should y'all be doing that the top shelf, or should you be doing the cheaper one?" And you get to kick that dude off your shoulder and say, "No, no, no. This is part of the plan. It's in my blow it money. It fits in the framework." And so you get to actually experience today more
Yeah.
freely because of the framework.
I love that. That's it. That's powerful. That's a powerful framework. And it's very similar to a framework that I currently have.
Is it?
It really is. It's very it is very, but the way you just framed it is going to make me restructure the way it's set up, because I've never heard it structured the way you just explained. And I love that, because I'll tell you one thing that I don't do most of the time. I don't walk around with Gator. I don't walk. Gator don't have. Gator doesn't walk around with blow, because I come from very. I come from very like nothing, like nothing. So I'm like, no, we're not. I don't walk around and just blow stuff. But when I first started to build, I had money that I would just set aside just to blow.
Right.
And I think it's because I don't really have any I love being at this computer. I love working. And so to me, I consider me going to get a new Mac blow it money, but it's really for work. And I know I'm psyching myself out with that.
But Robbie, and that's okay though, bro. Because again, remember, the design of the plan doesn't mean you have to decide what those dollars need to be spent on.
Ooh, I like
You
that.
determine that, right? But this is the importance behind it, though.
Mm,
This is the importance behind it. There's something psychological that happens, though, Robbie. There's something psychological that happens when you
mm.
spend freely. It communicates to yourself that I am a person of abundance. I
Yes,
am a
sir.
person. I am a person that behaves from a place of abundance as opposed to operating from a framework of scarcity,
Scarcity. Yep.
right?
100%.
So we're always trying to tilt the scale, tilt in the direction of operate from abundance as opposed to scarcity.
I love that. I really love that. I'm gonna go blow 20% of whatever came in today. I'm gonna blow it tomorrow.
Do it.
Imma just do it. Imma just be like,
Do
Imma
it.
just do it. This is inspiring, and I'm pretty sure my wife will appreciate this.
She will. And dude, why they love it even more because again, and two, this is it depends on how creative you want to get with it, Robbie. But my wife and I will do it this way. I got 5%, she's got 5% that we don't even need to talk to each other about, right? But that
Mm,
5% is our 5%. We can go light it on fire. We can go buy lottery tickets. We can do whatever you want with it. It doesn't matter.
that's right.
That's your 5%. You don't have to ask. And then 10% is either for the kids or designed for us to be spent as a family,
I love that. I
right?
love it. Yes.
But then, and then this is the other piece too, though. That's the beginning of the framework. Because what do you know about your future, Robbie? Are you just going to increase your income at 3% like inflation?
No.
No. Your income is going to increase beyond your lifestyle. And so
Absolutely.
you're gonna be tasked with and you're gonna have certain responsibilities moving forward where you're gonna say, man, look, I've got this new money, not ashamed of having new income, but
Yeah.
now you have a new opportunity to decide, do I want to, double down on the investment, or do I want to increase the investment? Do I want to increase paying down my mortgage, or do I want to live more enjoyable? And so you get that only when the foundation is solid.
And so that's where I put a lot of eggs in the basket. Like I love investing. I've become addicted to it.
Yeah.
And like to me, that's like my screw it money. Like I love doing it because I feel like I'm securing not only my future, but my family's future. So I love that aspect. I love that analogy. That the other 20% though, I am going to make a commitment. If I don't blow 20% of it tomorrow, I'm not gonna meditate. And I really want to meditate.
Bro, I love that. Tying both of the concepts together.
100%.
Oh, that's great.
I won't allow myself to meditate until I do that. So I'm committed. Jason, man, this has been a powerful conversation. I really appreciate you for like just stopping by and like having this heartfelt, real, authentic conversation with me, man. Where could people find you on social media?
Well, first of all, thank you, Robbie. I appreciate you for having me. And yes, I feel like this is one of those relationships like you described earlier where you'd love to replicate it 100 times over, right? Um,
100%. I feel we just touching the tip of the iceberg. Like
I agree. There's so many
so
other
much.
stories that were reeling through my head that, of course, need to be told. But so silent.streaker on TikTok and on Instagram. And then my Twitter is Silent Streaker, and there's a Facebook page of Silent Streaker. But again, as we've talked about, Facebook doesn't get much attention. But then also on my LinkedIn, you can actually find me at Jason Joeseph. My middle name is Joseph, and in high school I went by JJ. But so you can find me at Jason Joseph in on LinkedIn.
Perfect, man. I
And
really
then there's
appreciate
also
it,
silentstreaker.com though. So my website is silentstreaker.com.
which is a phenomenal website. You guys go check it out. Thank you again, Jason. Let's connect and I'll send you a recording of this in the email.
Perfect. I'd love
All
that.
right.
Thank you,
Yes,
Robbie.
sir.